Welcome to the Glendale Water and Power Commission meeting of October 6, 2008. May we have roll call?
Brahimian?
Present.
Commissioner Foley?
Present.
Commissioner Yao?
Present.
Commissioner Miller?
Present.
Absent for the record.
Okay, and our next item?
Item will be consent items.
And we have the minutes for the September 8th meeting. Any comments about those? Please, you.
Yes, Mr. President. I'd like to move that we consider the minutes for the next meeting in November, since there were some formatting issues that are still under discussion on the new format change. We'd like to go back to the prior format and maybe put in some more detailed discussion items for the meeting minutes, if that's appropriate.
Thank you. Pat, did you get my communication regarding that earlier?
No.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, the minutes that were submitted were not so detailed, and we thought it would be a good idea to have those looked at, redone again. So,
Okay.
Second?
yes, do we have a second to his motion?
Second.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, well, we will postpone the minutes then to the next meeting in November. Our next item.
Reports information. Item 3A, consideration of electric and water subcommittee structure.
I'll call upon Mr. Steiger at this point to speak.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to introduce our newest Assistant General Manager of Power Supply, Steve Linz, who had been General Counsel for GWP. So we welcome Steve.
Thank you, and congratulations, Steve, on your appointment.
And also, just to give you a 15-second update on our strategic planning process, we completed all employee workshops during the month of September. We've held a number of other meetings with stakeholders. This evening, we will have a meeting with the Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council, which will be informational both ways, both for the council getting information from us on GWP and for us getting some feedback on what they'd like to see in our strategic plan. So we're moving ahead. We're still on schedule for sometime in November, and that's where we are as of right now with the strategic plan.
And it'll be heard in November, then the completed schedule plan, you're saying?
We're hoping to have the plan in November, yes.
Okay, excellent. And then let's see, the electric water subcommittee structure?
Yes. What I'd like to do is propose to the Commission a subcommittee structure, standing subcommittee structure, that would focus on either electric issues or water issues. The subcommittees essentially would be two separate committees, one for water, one for electric. There would be two commissioners on each committee. Those committees would meet at some time during the month between commission meetings, discuss relevant issues regarding specific to either electric or water, determine positions and so on, and then report back to the commission either before or at the commission meeting as to its findings and as to its recommendations. So that's a recommendation I would like to make to the commission. I'd like to at least get your thoughts on it.
Any comments or questions?
Mr. President, members of the Commission, that type of a standing committee would be subject to the Brown Act. That doesn't mean you can't do it. It's just so that you would know that those meetings would need to be noticed in advance, and there would be a posted agenda and so forth. In order to do that, we would want to put this matter on the agenda for a future meeting, and you would take a vote on it, and we would want to have some written procedures as far as how those meetings would take place. That would come most likely in the form of a resolution that we would take to you at a future meeting.
That sounds appropriate. One concern I would have is how people would be appointed, how long their terms would be. If there's two on each subcommittee, one person would be out, I presume. Would we rotate? Questions like this. And I presume that some kind of constitution, so to speak, or bylaws would be formed governing this by staff that would be presented to us later?
Yes. My suggestion would be that if you're agreeable to move forward, we will put together those types of details and present it to you at the next meeting for your discussion and deliberations.
Okay. other comments?
One question I would have, I guess, for council would be whether there's any other committees that have such a structure already, and whether or not we could use that type of structure in this process, or if we could look into that.
That's certainly something I could investigate. I believe the Planning Commission, if I'm not mistaken, has done so for specific issues, but not necessarily a standing committee for a general topic such as water or electric.
Other questions or comments?
The other comment I would have is whether we can combine the two subcommittees into one for now instead of have a separate water subcommittee and a separate electric subcommittee. Is there any way we can combine those two and have a subcommittee to delve into the details of each topic? Is that appropriate to have just one subcommittee rather than two, since we only have 5 commissioners and the timing of this could be more strenuous on our time, at least, if we have to meet more often?
I think, Christine, however, if 3 or more commissioners are on it, that constitutes a full commission meeting, does it not?
It would seem to. You could certainly set it up in a number of different ways. It wouldn't necessarily have to be water, electric. It could be issue-specific. It could be done in a number of different ways. And again, all of these things should be reduced to writing in a form of bylaws or a policy. So we could present certain options to the Commission for their consideration.
Would the intent of the subcommittee be to investigate or to look into specific subjects more thoroughly than we do here in these meetings?
Yes, to give more time to the specifics, just as Mr. Yao has mentioned, to get down into the details, take some time to really understand the issues at a lower level, and then either take positions, make recommendations, do the kinds of things that need to be done when you talk about issues at that level.
Could you comment on benefits generally? I realize that's one that was just elaborated, but other benefits you see to this proposal that motivated it?
I think the biggest, the biggest benefit is the ability to look at an issue that is complex, and we have a number of those, as you're well aware, that can take significant analysis, understanding, discussion, to have a fuller understanding of what really is entailed with some of these things. Like, for example, and I'll use greenhouse gases. The greenhouse gas issue, while on the surface looks fairly, I won't say routine, but fairly obvious, there's many issues associated with that, and a number of strategic issues underneath that. It's almost impossible to discuss it at that level in this particular format, but at a committee level it would be much easier to do so and have a more healthy discussion.
I have one other question, maybe best directed to council. Would it be possible for the bylaws or constitution or whatever to be formulated in advance of the meeting and mailed to us so we could review it and consider it prior to the meeting?
I think we could put it together as part of the package that was presented to you for consideration, and then if you had some comments that should be discussed at the open meeting for the public's benefit, and then if you had some changes or suggestions you wanted to make, those could be made, and then we bring it back at a subsequent meeting.
I thought that might be a good idea because it would give us some time at least to digest the material before the next meeting, but I'm certainly open to the proposal if it could be prepared and we could look at it to consider for the next meeting. Should we have a resolution in that regard, or?
Well, for today's purposes, this is listed as a report only, so
okay.
If it's this Commission's desire, we could bring it forward at a future meeting for your consideration.
Well, I support the proposal.
Hey, thank you. We will bring it back to you at the next meeting.
Okay. Our next item.
General Manager Glenn Steiger on electric and water CIP budget expenditures, current and planned.
I would like to turn this over at this point to Dave Davis, and he'll give you an overview of our budget.
PowerPoint presentation for you. Copies are net income for the electric utility was $14.6 million for the year 2008 compared to $576,000 for 2007. This income is composed of 3 types of revenue. You've got the base rate revenues, wholesale revenues, and the fuel adjustment.
Turn on the green button. To turn it
Here we go.
Was there a handout about this?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay. All
You
right.
have one in front of you.
Okay. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong looking at the wrong handout here.
Our net base revenues were $880,000 compared to $1.9 million in '07. Our net wholesale revenues were relatively flat. They were $2.4 million in '08 compared to $2.8 million in '07. The majority of the revenue was from the fuel adjustment rate. The fuel adjustment revenue was $11.3 million in '08. $5.6 million of this was a refund of prior year SCAPA expenses. And that left us with $5.7 million of actual fuel adjustment revenue. This helped us recoup the $4.1 million that we lost in '06, '07 on the fuel adjustment revenue. GWP transferred $18.3 million to the general fund, which was 10.3% of revenues in '08. The electric utility invested $33 million in capital improvements in '08. And if you look at our cash balance, you recall we issued $60 million in revenue bonds in February of '08. As of 6/30, we've spent $23 million of the bond proceeds, and leaves us with $33 million of the bond proceeds yet to invest. On the water side, net income for the utility was $3.6 million. $950,000 of the net income came from the water adjustable rate. $2.7 million came from the base rate revenues. This is a result of the 9% base rate increase that took effect in January of '08. The water utility transferred $4 million to the general fund. This is 11.5% of revenues. They invested $18 million in capital improvements in '08, and they also issued $50 million in revenue bonds in '08, and they've spent $16.9 million of that in '08. They have $26 million left to spend of the bond proceeds. And Steve?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Commission. Steve Lenz, Assistant General Manager for Supply. We've got Am I on? Can you hear me? Hello? There's one slide up for my area. It's Power Management CIP plan, and that is split up into CIP projects for steam units, gas units, and then outside resources. Just for your information, and I, being new, was interested in the vintage of these units, and I talked to some of my staff this morning, and on units 1 through 5, which are the steam units, we've got vintages starting in 1941 for unit number 1 and going up to 1965 for unit 5. And then the gas units run from 77 to our latest new unit, which is unit 9 in '03. You can see that the 2 years of the budget, the first 2 years of the budget here, '08, '09, and 9/10, are years that are actually budgeted. So we've got about $2.8 million for steam unit CIP in '08, '09, 1.6 in 9/10, and for the gas units 1.4 and $1.7 million. You'll notice on 10, 11, 11, 12 that there are some pretty large numbers there. There's a $19 million figure for the gas unit CIP in 10-11, and a $38 million figure for the gas unit CIP in 11-12. Those are placeholders for a Unit 10 peaker that hasn't been approved yet. One of the challenges of my new position is to take a longer-term view of the entire plant with the greenhouse gas emissions regulations in mind and figure out what we want to do at Grayson and what we can do at Grayson given the new kind of stringent emissions regulations. So this is in there as a placeholder. It's not been approved yet, but we know we're going to need something at some point, not too far out. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Mr. President, thank you. So with the Unit 10 peaker, is that natural gas combined cycle, and what is the size that you're looking at?
My understanding is, and Glenn can correct me if I'm wrong, it's just like Unit 9, which is a natural gas simple cycle peaker. Natural gas.
Simple cycle. What
Yeah.
size?
Something just under 50 megawatts.
And so how would you determine that that's necessary?
Well, at this point, we've got to take another look at our long-term resource plan and overlay that all of the greenhouse gas emissions regulations that are coming our way. We've got all sorts of proposals at the state and federal level. One which we are pretty sure is going to hit us is a 33% renewable portfolio standard by 2020. And so we've got to take a look at that and overlay those requirements with what we've got at the plant and figure out what makes sense to in terms of going into Grayson. We don't know the specifics of those regulations yet. They're at CARB, which is the California Air Resources Board. They are mandated to come out with actual regulations by 2012. Soon we're going to have a decision from them that gives kind of a scoping plan of where they think it's going to go, whether we're going to have an auction or how the credits are going to be allocated. But that's going to be a major driver in terms of what we can do. When we know exactly how far we're going to have to reduce our emissions, we'll be able to decide, can we even put natural gas at Grayson? I don't know, at this point. But we're going to take some time to look at the big picture and look at our options in terms of, renewable resources that are out there, wind, geothermal, solar, et cetera, and make some decisions not too far from now.
In addition, when we look at the existing Grayson units, a number of them are very old and close to past their useful life. So we have to make some decisions based on, do we replace the capacity from those units with a new unit? So that's one decision. And then all the things that Steve has mentioned also factor into that. So we will be doing a fairly rigorous study over the next 6 months of what we need to do for our portfolio, with one of the key pieces is what do we do at Grayson. But we do have a placeholder, as Steve said, just in case that it makes sense for us to put another unit at Grayson. Right now, it would probably be the right thing to do, but it may not be once we do the study, once we find out.
Well, and that's why I mentioned, some of the advantages of some of these units, because you get to a point where it's diminishing returns and you're throwing good money after bad. And at some point, you're putting a lot of money into retrofitting a unit that's just not going to last that much longer.
But when you mention a peaker, I assume it's only running during the summer or just when power spikes. So if we were replacing the older units, wouldn't that be on the base load type of scenario rather than a peaker?
No, the older units, the heat rate is so high that they cannot be considered base load at all. And in fact, really, today's marketplace, almost none of our units are truly base load because of the heat rate. And when you compare with newer heat rates, we're above that. So we do use some of the newer units for base load, but generally, we're at the margin because of the heat rate.
So let me get a final clarification, I guess. Are you replacing the other 9 units with Unit 10, or one of the 9 units with Unit 10, or this is additional new?
This would be in addition to, and we would probably retire the first 2 or 3 units that have been in place. But no, the newer units, 9 and 8, would not be replaced.
And just to clarify, we're not doing anything yet. This is just a placeholder.
Right.
We're going to reevaluate the whole situation because we now have all these greenhouse gas regulations that are going to impact us tremendously. Like I said, Unit 10 is a peaker. It's in the budget as a placeholder for something. We know that in the near future we're going to need to do something.
Right.
There's no decisions been made with regard to a Unit 10 or any other unit at Grayson. However, because of the age of the units, we know that we're going to have to do something soon. So we're putting some dollars in the budget to prepare for the fact that we're going to have to do something. Maybe that's going out and just buying a bunch of renewables off-site. We don't know yet, but that's something we're going to evaluate.
That's fair enough. Thank you.
If I may ask, it sounds like the project is motivated not so much by a anticipated increase in power demand as it is by this issue of retiring facilities. Okay. And then what are the alternatives to putting in a new gas unit at Grayson? Have those been identified yet?
Not completely. I mean, one of the best examples is right next door in Burbank. We don't think that that's something that would be appropriate now with the new greenhouse gas regulations to have such a big base unit in Basin. That's one example that's been done recently. It was a 250 megawatt base unit, and with overfire air it can go up substantially higher. There's peakers. I think most of the units that I see going in these days are peaker units because they're small, you don't have big permitting issues, and you only use them when the market peaks, and it makes sense to have a smaller unit like that. And then, of course, there's renewables, and there's all sorts of alternatives off-site. In addition to all of the renewables, we're investing money at our existing off-site facilities like IPP and, sequestration on the coal plants and trying to clean those up. And we can always invest in outside projects outside of the city of Glendale like we've always done with SCAPA and the SCAPA utilities like LA to invest in any sort of project outside of the city.
Presumably, in the planning phase, you'll be looking at all these alternatives and deciding which is actually in the best interests of GWP.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Any other questions? Thanks.
Good afternoon, President Miller, members of the Commission. Ramon Abueg, Assistant General Manager, Electric Services. What's before you is our Electric Services 5-year capital improvement program. And this addresses all the capital projects that we have that deals with reliability as well as doing some improvements. I'm not going to go into it in detail, except point out the specific ones that we're doing that's very visible, and one of them being the 4 kV to 12 kV conversion. One of the things that we came to you 4 years ago is that we're going to, it's a 13-year program, and we have been funding that project now for about $7 to $8 million a year. And that's the one that's continuing until we can get some of the conversion going. And then the next biggest project that we have coming up, which is under the system modification and replacement, it's also commingled the way we split up the project with reliability improvements. We're doing a new substation project, not listed here specifically, which is the Glorieta substation project. We are going to be taking that substation out, upgrading it or replacing it with a newer substation with better technology. Most of this is pretty self-explanatory. Those are the two main projects that we want to point out, especially Glorieta. Once we have the RFP out, we will be doing a lot of public meetings to let them know about what we're doing, since it's right next to the park, right next to a water reservoir, and it's a very residential area. So that's the one that they would like to give you a heads up that we really are going to be focusing on in the next couple of years. So, any questions?
When do you expect for Glorieta that it actually might start?
We are planning to send to City Council permission to get an RFP out to get this specification. We just completed the feasibility study on how we can optimize that location for the power output. It's a very small location, so we did a feasibility study on what we can do. Right now, it's the maximum we have at Glorieta is 23 megawatts of capacity, where we think we can get as much as 80 megawatts by getting creative with the design.
And is that something that's going to be presented to City Council next month, the month after, or is it still in the works?
The request for RFP, we're looking at end of October, early November. But the RFP itself would be for a design build. Before we get there, we have to do environmental reports. There's a lot of reports that we still have to do, including the CEQA.
So you're looking at a year, 2 years?
We're hoping our target, based on our projection, is to get the new substation completed in 3 years. The majority of the work being the next 2 years.
Thank you.
In light of that, the reason I pointed that out is part of our conversion. We have completed converting the area of Glorieta to 12 kV, but we have not powered them up at 12 kV. They're still being served at 4. We're slowly taking the load off the 4 kV in preparation for taking the substation out. And one of the things I may point out is we become very vulnerable in that area. I have pointed out the term N-1 condition for every time we review the indices. At that point, when we take the Glorieta substation out, we will be at N-1 condition. So it limits our flexibility while that substation is out. That's why we're trying to go through a fast track. Okay.
I see a streetlight system capital. What is the purpose?
On
What is the plan
streetlight, what we're doing with that, we have the painting program. Painting program. We also have some replacement programs that we're taking out some of the old lights and replacing with the newer ones.
Now, do we have any energy efficiency money for streetlights?
Not specifically. One of the things that we're testing currently in engineering is we're looking at LED lighting for streetlights and see how much of that would really present any savings. We're setting up a test site. We ordered the parts. We're setting up a test site where we can take a look at a whole block and compare what the energy savings is for LED versus your standard lighting.
Do we know how much energy we use for streetlights in the city?
I know the dollars. There's about $1 million in energy, but
$1 million?
In terms of the actual energy usage, I don't have that information in front of me.
Thank you.
I noticed a drop of over $8 million in your distribution system reliability improvements from fiscal year 09-10 to fiscal year 10-11. That's about 25% of the budget. You've already alluded, I think, to some of the changes there. Were there others?
Right. We are completing the last transmission project this year.
Okay.
We just had completed the Kellogg-Ross-Moy number 3. This year we're doing the Glendale Howard North and an improvement on one of the other sub-transmission. Once we complete that, we're pretty much done with the transmission side. So we're now slowly bringing it into the distribution.
These were entirely funded by debt, I take it, by bond issues?
Yes, at least for this year.
Okay. With a drop in the budget, do you anticipate other bonds coming up or a need for bonds in the power side?
Not from what I can see.
Okay.
No.
A secondary benefit to your 4 kV to 12 kV expansion, apart from the improvement in reliability, is improved power conservation in the transmission arena, I take it?
In both the transmission and distribution,
Okay.
Technically the voltage drop on those lines are reduced, or the current on those are reduced, so the actual losses on the lines will drop by about a third.
Yeah, I thought it was important to point that out for our audience.
Right.
Thank you. That's
So
all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. I'm Peter Kavunas, Water Services Administrator. The next item is the CIP program for the next 5 years for the water utility. What you have in front of you on the screen is a presentation of the way we plan to spend money, actually the way we planned to spend money a couple of years ago when the budget was prepared. As Mr. Abweg, I won't go through each line, each project under every line in detail, but I would like to highlight some key things. On the first line, you see water source improvements. And under water source improvements, what that budget item stands for us is developing new wells primarily to increase our local supply. We plan to, if the Verdugo Basin will give us a couple of good locations, we plan to drill 2 new wells in the next couple of years. And we also plan to rehabilitate an old well, so fully utilize our groundwater right from the Verdugo Basin. Those projects are reflected under the first line of water source improvements. Potable water pumping plant improvements refer to our pump station improvements. A few years ago, we had systematically reviewed all the pump stations in the system, identified improvements to be made to all the pump stations, and we're in the process of completing those. We actually have about 1 pump station left, and we've also incorporated every 2-year review of the energy efficiency at each of those pump stations. We had that done a year before. We plan to do it again the next year, and each time we do that, we identify new improvements that may be necessary. So those projects are reflected under potable water pumping plant improvements. In addition to that, we also have a programmatic view of our ability to provide energy to our pump stations under emergency conditions. And so a lot of our pump stations we're retrofitting with sort of an easy plug for portable generators that will give us the ability, in case of a massive power outage, to move our portable generator, or perhaps an additional one if we were to buy one, or a rented one if we don't have enough. And that way we can light up pump stations in times of emergency and continue water supply. The 4th line down is potable water reservoirs and tanks. That's the dominant item in our CIP. That's the replacement of the Chevy Chase 968 reservoir and pump station. That project's in full swing right now. There's another item on the agenda a little later on, and we'll give you an update on that. But you can see that dominating the next couple of years. And then out in the future, in years 3, 4, and 5, we have about $1 million for other anticipated items. We certainly hope we don't have to replace another reservoir this size. We're not financed to do that, but we do see the need for continuous investment, capital investment in our storage facilities, both tanks and reservoirs. The continuous item on the budget is potable water mains, hydrants, and meters, and that item is the cleaning and cement mortar lining of pipes in the system, as well as replacement when cleaning and cement mortar lining is not feasible. And that's an item that goes on in time. We have a fairly good fix on the next 3 years, and that's why our budgets reflect those dollars. The 2 years that come out, 11, 12, and 12, 13, we're focusing on those to see if that's enough money or not. Broken out of that item is the advanced meter infrastructure improvements. That was an effort that was anticipated to be $12 million for the water utility AMI effort. Again, that was a couple of years ago. At this point, the effort has refocused a little bit to be a joint effort between water and electric. We still believe that money is adequate in the budget. And again, as we get closer to proposals, we'll reevaluate that. And those are the highlights. Does the Commission have any questions?
Mr. President, what is your plan for the AMI with electric? Can you expand on that?
The utility is looking at issuing a request for proposals for a joint advanced metering infrastructure proposal that would provide AMI throughout the city of Glendale for both water and electric meters. There was a time a couple of years ago when water was looking to proceed on its own and move along with that, and then at some point the electric utility decided to do the same, and so it was a natural blend to put the two efforts together.
So it's pretty much put a schedule rather than being any kind of synergies, because you're anticipating spending the same amount of money. It's just that the electric side is pushing up their schedule, whereas you guys are still proceeding ahead with the water side. Is that correct?
It's meshing the schedule into one schedule for both. And so we've been delayed a little bit, if you will, if you want to look at it in terms of scheduling.
But any cost savings?
It's possible if we have a good proposal by someone that would use the same communications system, that we would not have to pay as much for a separate communication system for water AMI. If we can use the same communication system for water and electric, then there would be a net savings. To explain just a little bit more of water, Our concept before was to use a fixed base network. Right now, we're looking at some other technology that may be useful for both, in which case we would not have to do the towers and the communications that go with a fixed base network.
With regard to the water source improvements in 2010 and 2011, is the almost doubling of the 2 wells in the Verdugo Basin, or is that some other reason that the number goes from 1.2 up to 2.3?
Oh, that no. There's other projects that are included. That's just the way the money's scheduled.
Okay.
We try to anticipate when the design is done and when the construction is done, which fiscal year each one is done. So if you have 2 constructions perhaps overlap, or maybe no design one year and everything the next, it's just a matter of. I look at it in terms of total dollars more so than any one year in particular.
And the 2 wells in the Verdugo Basin, what's the status of that? Is that something that is on track to go forward, or still looking at it?
We have employed a firm called Geomatrix, and the firm is helping us with a geologic study of the basin, identifying suitable locations. We've drilled 2 pilot holes. We're in the process of drilling a 3rd one and trying to find out a suitable location. It's a fairly small basin, considered steep by geologic terms, and it's kind of finicky. It's difficult to find a good location to put a well in. So it's been a bit of a trial and error in putting pilot holes. So we're proceeding. We have another one coming. So,
thank you.
I also had a question on the same item. Is the new wells meant to increase groundwater production overall, or are they more in the order of replacements for other wells?
They're intended to increase total production.
Okay, very good.
We want to fully utilize our groundwater right from Verdugo Basin, which right now we don't have the capacity to do. We want to be able to produce all of it.
Right. And then on potable water mains, hydrants, and meters, there's a big drop from fiscal year 2010-11 to fiscal year 11 through 12. Could you elaborate on that and why that is occurring?
There's 2 large cleaning and lining projects that we've identified, one for this year, one for 10-11. Okay. After that, we go more into main replacement projects, which are smaller projects. Cleaning and lining, we had a whole host of them. And talking to LADWP, we learned a lot from their process of cleaning and lining mains throughout their whole system. Mm-hmm. As you may know, DWP went through a 20-year program and replaced an untold number of miles, cleaned and lined an untold number of miles of pipe in the system. And we learned from their experience. We modified our specification to reflect theirs. And we went from projects that were 5,000 to 7,000 feet of cleaning and lining to projects that are 60,000 feet of cleaning and lining. And so we've pulled from future projects, and we fast-forwarded quite a few.
So essentially your relining project will be done in fiscal year 2010-11. I had the impression that it was going to go on for 20 years or so.
Right. The main replacement projects will continue for probably 2 decades, but the cleaning and lining is all being fast-tracked.
Oh.
Makes more sense and gives us a better value from a contracting point of view.
Excellent. I'd like to commend you for that. I think that's great. Yes, on the advanced meter infrastructure improvements, I take it that these are for customer meters.
Yes.
Do they also include meters in the distribution system, which are used just for monitoring water production and things like that?
No, not at this time.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chairman Miller, members of the Commission, I'm Ned Basson, Assistant General Manager, Customer and Support Services. One of the support services is planning the upgrade and better utilization of our area called the Utilities Operations Center. That center right now houses the Grayson Power Plant. It's a reporting location for our electric and water field crews. It includes the stores and warehouse and fleet maintenance facility. As others, I will not go into great detail on each item. The first 2 years, 08-09 and 09-10, are the budgeted, approved budget years. The following years are part of our long-term planning. The As you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, over the next 5-year period, we're planning to do about $45 million worth of improvements to the Utility Operations Center. Currently, if you look on the left side under 208, 209, we are currently doing demolition, and we'll begin putting in walls and fences in this fiscal year, and doing the design of the training center, which construction should start next year. The plan is that in future years, we will work on the stores building, which will replace our existing warehouse and provide warehousing, stores, and a covered area for bulk storage of materials. We will provide a new fleet services building for maintenance of our fleets and an operations building which will house people that are now currently on site, housed in various trailers around the site, as well as some of our staff that are currently housed off-site. Are there any questions?
Please.
Yes, Mr. Basson, you mentioned the training center is being built right now?
No, it is in design.
In design? Are we considering LEED certification for any of these new construction buildings?
Yes, we're considering at least silver certification for our facilities, and we think that we'll be close enough on one of them that we might be able to get gold without much additional cost.
Oh, great, because I really encourage the city, at least, especially the GWP, to consider LEED certification for any buildings or new constructions that we develop. Just set an example for anyone else who's looking at the GWP as a role model for that.
We've heard that before, and we're trying to do that, yes.
Great. Very good.
A question for you regarding the various line items here. We've planned out for 5 years, and I think it's the case, except for the top one, that all of these other items are basically projects that will be completed in the 5-year period. Is that a correct
That's
interpretation? Correct. But the top one is programmatic and will probably continue beyond the 5 years.
To do the other projects requires a continual improvements to the site, some of which is demolition of existing facilities to make room for the new facilities. I'm sure there'll be site common improvements that go beyond the 5 years.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
That concludes the budget presentation.
Well, just speaking for myself, I'd like to thank you and your staff for going through this exercise, Glenn. I think this kind of exercise will help you order your work better. I think it's going to assist you in dialogue with council and ratepayers in terms of finance issues. And it's really great that you got this together for us to hear. I'm sure the other commission members would agree with me on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item 3C, under electric, reliability indices.
Good afternoon again. Ramona Bueg, Electrical Services. This month, or for the month of September, we had 2 outages. One outage is due to a failure of an underground device inside a vault affecting the customers on number 7 Shoal. This one particularly, it started at 5:40 a.m. and wasn't concluded until more than 10 hours later. So I have to admit that this is one of those weird ones, and one of the main reasons is we did have difficulty finding where the fault was. Part of the contributing factor was we had a vault that was towards at the end in the Shoal Canyon area, in basically undeveloped area. And the vault where the failure had occurred was actually under about a foot or 2 of dirt. And so we had difficulty locating. But once we found that, the actual repair didn't take that long. So the second outage that we have is due to my favorite subject, the Mylar balloon. We did have a transmission line. While the crew was on patrol, they saw Mylar balloons on a transmission line that required us to basically shut that transmission line. And unfortunately, at that time, we had work happening on the 2 other transmission lines feeding the Bel Air substation. So that actually took the power out for all the customers, which is about 3,230 customers being served from Bel Air substation for about 3 minutes until we can clear the line. That's a policy that we have, is rather than waiting for this condition to cause a problem that's out of our control, we try to clear it before it becomes a problem. So as a result, rolling indices, it's still within our target for both the interruption and the total number of outages. Okay? And what I'd like to point out is, I'd like to pass this. I didn't make copies, so just want to let you know where we're going with our indices. It's a remember when we were looking at our outages about 2 years ago, we made a presentation to you on all the different specific projects. There's only one copy, Jackie, just different.
Just pass it around.
Just pass it around.
Pass
please.
it around. Why don't you pass all of it? I think they're together.
That's all of it. Just sorted out differently.
Yeah, okay.
Remember in the presentation 2 years ago, we presented a lot of major projects to show specific problems that we've identified. We call them the low-hanging fruits that would give us the benefit that I believe we are now enjoying of reducing the outages. We are now drilling down to specific feeders, looking at what the different indices are for each separate feeders. We have 111 feeders. So we're now looking for the little things that's causing the outages that we can do. So we're now trying to look at it on a feeder level and trying to prioritize it to make further improvements on our reliability. So the two that you have there, one sorted by KD, which is the interruption index per customer affected by an outage. We're looking at from worst to best, and the other one is by SIFI, which is the frequency of the interruption per. So we're trying to decide now, our planning department is taking a look at if there's anything common in these feeders that we can deal with and make the problems that are happening to go away. So we're now drilling down to a more specific level of fixing the problems. Like I stated earlier, we've dealt with the major problems. We've upgraded the protection system. We've upgraded and added more transmission system. So now we're drilling down to a more, really the distribution side of the system.
Questions?
A quick one. I see there were 10 customers impacted with that one outage that we had. It took 10 hours.
Yes.
So it was a localized problem, or?
We did. We basically, the area that was affected was underground, so we did what I was explaining to Mr. Steiger is sometimes for underground to find it, we purposely close them up and hope that we can blow them so we can see exactly where it's coming from. So that's how we're able to isolate this one.
And do we know which time of the day this was, the 10 hours?
Yeah, the outage started at 5:40 a.m.
Okay.
By 2:20, we have most of the customers back, except for the last 10, where we actually had to dig up the vault.
Yep, thank you.
You?
Yes, I have a question about the Mylar balloons. I guess since the bill was vetoed by the governor to ban or to modify the Mylar balloon sales, I mean, the way we can sell Mylar balloons, what is the GWP position now that since it's been vetoed? I mean, are we going to pursue another bill, or are we just giving it up on the restrictions on Mylar balloons?
No, we have not. We're still lobbying. The SCAPA members, the TND committee of the SCAPA members, we're trying to put together another effort, push forward with a law against Mylar balloons.
So we're proposing a new bill, or at least supporting a new bill to do that?
We're trying to reintroduce it and trying to do it more of a collective basis, which we've done also, but we haven't given up on it. I believe the third reading is due this year, so we have one more chance with the Mylar balloons. So we're pushing forth some new effort and trying to convince our legislators that we do need some control of Mylar balloons.
Well, maybe the next governor can pass it, because the legislature passed it. It's just that the governor vetoed it.
Right. I understand he vetoed too many bills anyway.
Okay. Thank you.
Pat? A question on your process here. When we go through and discover these outages and log them as you have, both here and in other documents, are we learning about problems and trying to redress them somehow, things that are systematic, like not being able to find vaults, suggest that maybe the maps need to be updated or better maps given to crews or something like that? Just speculating. I don't know enough about it.
The answer is yes. One of the action items that came out of that is that on the maps we are stating where this vault was. And in addition to that, we're adding markers on this location so that it's more visible, so that if we do have any major downpour again where this gets covered, because we can't prevent it, it's really an undeveloped area, is being marked and labeled so we can easily spot where it is.
Just stepping from that issue to something a little bit more general, are the condition of the maps generally, have they been thought about? Are they adequate? Do we have sufficient maps available for the crews in the field and so forth?
Yes, we do. This is the first incident that I've been here in 5 years where we were.
It's the first I've heard about too, but I just wanted to ask. Please go ahead.
We have very good maps. In fact, we update the maps every 2 months. One of the priorities for our mapping group is to make sure that we have the most recent and current maps in the system. So.
Okay, that's very good. And I think that sort of effort is what has led you to be so successful with this program. And even with these 2 outages, I noted that you were within your goals, which is very commendable. On the issue about the Mylar balloons, I was going to maybe reserve this to new business, but since Hugh brought it up, I can't withstand the temptation. Have we been talking to the manufacturers of the industry at all, or has Burbank, to see if we could come up with some solution that would be in the mutual interests of the utility industry and the manufacturers?
No, we have not.
Okay. I would suggest that that be considered. I've noted that some Mylar balloons are often sold with a little weight attached, such that the balloon cannot really escape. Something like that would be...
That is required by law. That's
Okay.
already required by current law that all Mylar balloons has to be weighted down. But once they leave the store, they get tied down to a party. In fact, right before this meeting, I saw a regular balloon flying off, and I was thinking, I hope that doesn't land in Glendale.
Yeah.
Once it leaves the store, there's no
control.
No control.
But, something could be done. For example, the weight could be put in the balloon itself or something. I'm just thinking of something that... because I think the reason the governor vetoed it is that he saw it as harmful to that particular business. And to be fair, political leaders are going to be thinking that way to some extent. They're going to be looking at what's beneficial to the manufacturers. So anyway, I just wanted to suggest that. And if we talk to Burbank or on the legal side or whatever, perhaps that could be remembered.
Okay.
Thank you. I have no other questions. Does anyone else? Thank you very much for this presentation. Our next item.
Item number 3D, water, MWD update.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Peter Kavunas, Water Services Administrator. In an effort to keep the committee better informed on the broader picture of water supply, I thought Mr. Steiger gave really good direction to add an item that would be a standing item on the commission, an update on water supplies in the state, and actually MWD, which is more pertinent to us than the state. And to that effect, I will be bringing to the committee the latest update on water supplies that I get from Metropolitan Water District on a regular basis. And that is an update in terms of storage from both the State Water Project and the Colorado River Aqueduct, as well as expected deliveries when that information is available. In addition to that, a brief update on planning efforts by Metropolitan Water District to meet the current shortage as well as future. So in terms of supplies, at this point in time, the State Water Project does not have an allocation that's available. They do the snow surveys in November. Usually around December 1 is when we find out how much water we expect to get compared to what we requested. At this point in time, there's no number to hang our hat on. It's early in the season. In terms of what we have in storage, in the Colorado River Aqueduct, things are in advance of any rain that we may have. Things are fairly modest. Lake Mead is at about 46% of its capacity, and Lake Powell is at about 60% of its capacity. So fairly low levels, although the Colorado River watershed had a better than normal year. So we expect, in general, to get full deliveries to the Metropolitan Water District through the aqueduct. The State Water Project above the Delta, there's two key storage facilities, Lake Oroville and Lake Shasta. Lake Oroville is at about 32% of its capacity, and Lake Shasta is at about 34% of its capacity, so both are in very poor shape. And locally, Diamond Valley Lake, which is Metropolitan's own storage facility here, is at about 517,000 acre-feet, which is 64% of the maximum storage. In terms of this year's supplies, at this point in time, Metropolitan expects to be able to meet the supplies with withdrawals from storage, both surface and groundwater storage, as well as some transfers with agricultural communities that are already planned. Does the Commission have any questions on the state of supplies at this point in time?
Please, Hugh.
The recent executive order to increase water supply from the Delta of Northern California, does that have any impact on MWD supplies? The bond or something to expand the region, or can you expand on that if you know of it, if anything, or any impact?
There's a number of things at the state level. There was a bond, XX1, that was approved. That bond is simply appropriating funds for propositions that had already been voted in. There was the governor declared a drought water bank that was established for the year. That drought water bank frees up water and makes it available to both the State Water Project and the Central Water Project, which is more the farmer side, the federally controlled part of the project. And the latter, the drought water bank, is reminiscent of a drought water bank that was enacted in 1991 at the height of that drought, and it's a measure that would get us through this year, but not necessarily a long-term solution.
Okay. Thank you.
In terms of future planning efforts, Metropolitan Water District has a short-term, interim, as well as a long-term approach. And the short term is to prepare for possible shortages and by carefully managing water reserves and conservation throughout the region. Some key highlights are the June 10th declaration where they asked each and every local agency to increase conservation. Some agencies like Glendale have been at it for over a year now, and yet there were others in the Southern California that, believe it or not, had not quite caught on with trying to get conservation going. And in addition to that, Metropolitan is amping up the message with a $5 million advertising and outreach campaign. For the midterm, they're looking at additional transfers that may be available to the State Water Project and indirectly to Metropolitan Water District, as well as matching monies for recycling and desalination projects in the area. And in the long term, Metropolitan has engaged in an integrated water resources management plan. They've had some stakeholder meetings. That's a process that's intended to be open to the general public. They've received feedback from a lot of people, and then trying to process all that and synthesize a broader plan that will help meet demands for the next 50 years. In terms of an update on regional shortage allocation, we don't have regional shortage allocation at this point, so there's no update at this time. I expect we'll probably have regional shortage allocation early in 2009. So more on that to come.
One question for you on Diamond Valley Reservoir. Is the water supply from that able to reach Glendale or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is part of the system, and Metropolitan can push the water all the way to us. Of note is a recent news release by Metropolitan Water District that with water level dropping in Diamond Valley, it's dropped below their docks, so they no longer have boating because you can't get to the water with the docks. So that's a physical manifestation of lower water levels.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Next item.
3D, number 2, Chevy Chase 968 Reservoir and Pump Station replacement update.
Mr. Chairman, That would be my item as well. And what I'd like to do, by way of giving an update on the project, I would also like to show you, as well as the public that is watching our meeting tonight, how to get updated information on the project. So if we can have the lights dimmed and the screen on. This is the homepage for the City of Glendale. And there's many different links, of course, but under City Departments, someone can go to Glendale Water and Power, and you will get a presentation on how to navigate this site, so without stealing anybody's thunder. If you go to Projects and Reports, under Projects and Reports, you will see Chevy Chase Reservoir Replacement. This is a link to a separate website that was established for the project itself, and this is what you'd find. You'd find a 3-week look-ahead schedule, notices of our neighborhood meetings so people know when future information is coming up, and then construction updates. And probably my most visited site from my computer, as in every morning as soon as I get in, is the construction camera. So if you click on that, you go to a website that was set up by contract with a vendor that does this. And we have 2 cameras that are looking at the site all the time and take pictures every 15 minutes. This is from up the canyon looking down, and what you see is a real-time view of the construction site. It's almost quitting time, and you can toggle between this camera view and camera 2. That camera 2 is located approximately where the cursor is now on Chevy Chase Drive, looking into the site. So we'll go to that. That's a good view for the progress of the project to date. And so now you're looking in a little better light. The sun is behind this camera a little bit. And you can see into the construction site. This is how you zoom a particular view, and that gives you an idea of what's happening at the site. And of course, this can be dragged around so you can see in a little more detail what's happening. I'm looking at the northwestern corner, and as a civil engineer, I have to tell you this is probably the more fun part of being here. This is a good project to work on. What you're seeing is a checkered pattern of concrete pours. These are slabs of what will be the floor of Chevy Chase 968 Reservoir. We've started pouring the floor. And what you see up here, it kind of looks like fencing. It's not actually fencing. It is the rebar that will be used to shape the walls. The wall will be shaped and poured on the northeast corner in the coming weeks. The slabs are poured in a checkered pattern every 7 days. Then the slabs in between will be poured after that. This allows the slabs that have been poured to shrink, as concrete does, and minimize any shrinkage that may be that may happen. Our goal is to have no leaks when this reservoir is built. And you can see, following along what will be the north wall of the north cell, this checkered pattern continues in the concrete floor, is really taking nice shape at this point. If I go back to camera 1, I want to show you real quick. Let me zoom back into the construction site. Zoom in just a little bit more. I want to show you, this is what you're looking at here. This structure here is the pump station, which will actually have a floor that's a little below the floor of the reservoir, so the pumps can pull the water out and can pull every last drop out and utilize all the water that's in storage. This will probably be right here, will be just about finished grade, maybe a little above that, and the pump station will extend just a little above that and have somewhat of a Spanish style architecture above the ground. What you're looking at here, the gray material is gravel that's been laid. The concrete will be laid on top of that. You can probably imagine I can go on for some time, but I'm going to stop here and see if the Commission has any questions on the project.
Just how big is the project? It's hard to tell from here when you drive by it. Is it the size of a football field, smaller, larger?
It's 14.5 million gallons.
All right.
So you can make that into acreage. It's going to be, my guess is about 4 football fields. It's much larger than anybody would have anticipated if they just simply walked by, or even living next to it. It's just a much larger site than people believe. We did have a very successful community meeting a couple of weeks ago where the community was invited to join us. We bussed the members of the community that were interested. We bussed them into the construction site so they could walk the ground, and then gave them information about the construction schedule. We had about 35, 40 people from the community, as well as our general manager who was there to hear firsthand any concerns that people may have. So that's all I wanted to show you on the website. A bit of an update on the project and a navigation. I did want to give you a brief update on our change orders to date. We have approved.
Oh, before you go on,
yes,
Mr. Kabunas,
Commissioner, yeah.
Since you mentioned the community meeting, can you give us an update on what they said or what the concerns were?
We've had no complaints from the community so far on this project, and we're aiming for not having an impact on the community to the extent possible. I would like to ask the general manager what his impressions were.
They were very, very favorable. Just about everyone there commented on how well the project was going, that the noise was not intrusive. They commented, Peter, on listening to their concerns a while back about limiting some of the noise. Peter has done that. So it was quite positive. In some cases, almost too positive. So it can never be too positive. So.
Thank you.
Well, there's not a member of the public from that area here, I guess, but the reports are very positive, and I want to commend you and your staff for everything done in that regard.
Thank you. I'll take that before I tell you about the change orders. Actually, on the change order front, we've approved 8 change orders to date, and the 8 change orders have had a net effect of $6,000, which is not much for a $21 million project. We do have 2 big-ticket items that are being negotiated at this time, and those will have a significant effect on the project cost. As I've mentioned to the committee before, one is the on-site groundwater that we found, and the base rock that was very different than what the geologist expected. So we had to use much more soil cement to make a good bed for the reservoir. And we had to crush more rock on site than we thought would be necessary. So once those 2 items take some good shape, we'll reach some agreement with the contractor. I'll be bringing you back the details. The change orders we've had to date, as I've mentioned to the Commission before, are relatively routine items that are to be expected with just about every construction project. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The last item is we'll hand out for your records a copy of our production report. There's nothing out of the ordinary. It shows. Thank you, Jackie. It shows a continued good groundwater, good local water production. We had 34% of our total supply was local, and the rest was MWD. Our goal is to be below 70% for MWD. So. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If I could step out of the agenda here just for a moment, I know Commissioner Ebrahimian needs to leave at 5:30. That's about 20 minutes from now. Can we continue the meeting after that point, or Council?
You would still have a quorum for purposes of your meeting.
All right. Okay, well, we'll try to get done here. The next item, Jackie.
Customer and support services, water conservation.
Mr. President, members of Commission, hello, my name is Atine Hartunian, and I'm here to present our water conservation update. The first chart that you can see is our water production. For August, our water production was down 3.6% as compared to our base year in '06. This time last year, our water production was up 5.4% as compared to our base year. So we did see a reduction in production for August. Our recent outreach efforts included 2 major outreach efforts. The first was our October issue of The Source, which was mailed end of September, and included outdoor water conservation information and water supply information. It was followed by bill inserts, which started appearing in bills starting October 1st, which had the same theme, and it's included in the packets that I gave to you. It educated customers on our water supply shortage, as well as conservation information was provided in the bill inserts, and that will continue through December. I won't go through all of them. Our energy and water survey program is continuing to receive more calls than usual. This is the highest amount of calls that we've ever had since the start of this program in 2001. As you can see, since July 1st, 2008, we've had 206 total surveys scheduled. So that is a free in-home energy and water survey. I'll talk more about that as we reach outdoor water conservation. In our last meeting, there's a few questions about how we are addressing outdoor water conservation issues. And in every material that we send out, advertisements or brochures, any type of educational material, we do always include information on outdoor water conservation, since that does consume a lot of our residential customers' water. We, throughout the year, schedule California-friendly landscape classes, and those are free to all customers. And as you can see, we have several scheduled in October and November, and every time we advertise those in the source, these classes are booked. So we usually have about 50 residents in each class. And then we offer them, like I said, throughout the year, and we have been even before we had our phase 1 of our water conservation plan. And every issue of our source newsletter also includes information on landscape conservation. Some of the other items I'd like to discuss are our in-home water survey program, as I mentioned, does include a outdoor water conservation portion where we ask our customers about their water usage outdoors, and we help them set their irrigation meters and sprinklers and adjust them and educate them on the types of different ways they could water their landscape and some of the rebates that we offer. Some of our next steps in water conservation include working with Burbank and Pasadena in purchasing outdoor water conservation advertisements, such as billboards and bus shelters, depending on our budgets. We're also looking at purchasing some cable television spots. When we first started phase 1 of our conservation outreach plan, we did record 2 public service announcements, indoor and outdoor, in 2 different languages. So we're looking at using those for cable television spots, and Burbank and Pasadena are also interested. So as soon as we secure some positions, we'll let you know as to what channels we're pursuing and how much it'll cost. And some of the other next step includes the December issue of the Source, which will be mailed out at the end of November. It'll follow the water conservation bill insert and, again, include more tips on water conservation and updates on our supply. Oh, sorry. Just want to know if you had any more questions.
I have a couple questions for you real quick. On the 90 notices that have been sent out to the water wasters, are those repeat offenders? Are those 90 new people?
The 90, I believe 2 of the 90 were repeat offenders, but everybody else was new. So, and we do get more increases in water waster calls because we continue to advertise we continue to advertise the fact that we do send out notices to customers if they call to report water waste in their neighborhood.
And is there currently, refresh my recollection, as to whether there is an enforcement procedure if somebody is a repeat offender or continues just to ignore the notices?
What we do, the first notice is a postcard. The second one is usually a phone call and a follow-up letter to the customer. And if necessary, we will go out to the site. If it's, for example, a restaurant, then we'd contact the property owner or the management company that's managing it. And by that time, they usually stop and they repair whatever it is that was wasting water. But if there isn't, then the enforcement will continue, and there will possibly be penalties or a water flow restrictor.
With the cable television, I mean, a lot of people have DirecTV or other satellite services. I'm assuming there's been an analysis as to whether it's beneficial to advertise on cable TV or whether we should join forces with LA or bigger entities, basically, to advertise with.
We are looking into it. It's just the first step. It was an idea. What Burbank had done was they had purchased some cable advertising spots and had gotten good feedback, and then they've also purchased movie advertising where you go right before the movie starts, there's advertising on the screen. So we're looking at seeing if that worked for them and seeing how maybe we can work together and purchase more spots like that. And if it is effective, then we'll pursue more. If not, then we'll just focus on outdoor water conservation advertising, such as billboards and bus shelters and bus advertising.
And has there ever been, in the past, an effort to join, like LA, or a bigger city other than just Pasadena or Burbank, since they have more funding and a wider range, I guess you could say.
This is fairly new in terms of the Tri-City, so it's the first time we're doing this because it's the first time that we've been in this type of a conservation phase. So I think we're starting off with the neighboring cities first and seeing what it is we can do, and then as we go into mandatory, we'll definitely see if we need to pursue neighboring cities as well.
Thank you.
Other questions?
A quick question. This pamphlet from Metropolitan Water District, I see there's a reference regarding car washes and car washes that use recycled water. I assume most of the car washes in City of Glendale do that?
Not most of them. I know they have a recirculating water system, but I believe I can ask Peter how many we have that use recycled water. We don't have any at this point, but something that we want to pursue. But I know many car washes use a recirculating water system, but I don't believe that they could use recycled at this point. I'm not sure. How do you address it?
Tina is correct. There's a bit of a misconception with car washes. Car washes reuse their water for washing cars. And so, in a way, they're recycled, but they don't use our recycled water, and that's primarily for health concerns, that for the workers that are exposed to spray from the water. Not suggesting the health concerns are necessarily legitimate because the water has been treated, but the perception is that if people are exposed to the mist from a car wash, that it's not, it may not be safe. So there are none that I know of in Glendale that use our recycled water for car wash.
But they recirculate the water.
Circulating their water for washing cars, yes.
Other questions? In the past, we've talked about how water is used by our customers, and if I understand or remember correctly, the bulk of it actually is used for outdoor purposes. Mm-hmm. And we talked about what the biggest bang for the buck might be in terms of getting water reduction, and I think outdoor water was talked about. We talked about what additional incentives we might be able to provide for reducing water usage outside. Have we made much progress in that arena or done anything in that regard? For example, with xeriscaping, trying to get more people to apply for that.
Well, we don't offer any rebates or anything for xeriscaping. However, we have included it in the city's ordinance where the planning department does look for that and okays it if customers want to put in xeriscaping and California native plants. But we certainly don't have any different types of rebates for that type of landscaping. However, we are now offering rebates for the first time on smart irrigation controllers and rotating sprinkler heads. So we are taking steps in that direction to offer incentives to customers who are interested in reducing their outdoor water use.
Thank you. I bring it up because I think if we could apply more effort in that regard, we'd be able to have more success with some of our conservation effort. I note that it's worth noting, I think in this month we haven't met the 10% and for the month of August. So, thank you. Next item.
Item number 3E2, GWP new website navigation. And we will have Barang Abadi from Information Services of the City of Glendale address that for you.
Mr. President, members of the Commission, my name is Barang Abadi with Information Services. We can take this one of two ways. I've got a 7-slide PowerPoint presentation about the reasoning why we did a redesign, new enhancements that we've made to existing functionality, new features, and our outcomes thus far. We can go that way, or I can bring up the website and we can navigate it on screen and you can have at it. I would like to do whatever's more beneficial to the Commission. I know you have a limited amount of time.
Website.
Is there a preference?
Well, one thing to take into consideration is the audience, anybody who may be watching. I would think the 7 slides would be the better way to go, perhaps, in that regard.
I can bring up the 7 slides, and if there are any questions about the website, I can certainly bring them up, and we can go through it then.
I take it.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
I think the 7 slides doesn't sound too long, and maybe afterwards, once Commissioner Abraham leaves, then we can do the website thing. Or you want to do the website thing first? Would you like to do the website first?
I'd rather see the website first.
Okay, then we can do that and then do the
All right,
slides after.
okay, let's go ahead and do it that way. That way you get exposed. Yeah.
Give me one moment, please. I'm going to bring up the old website so that you have a comparison here. Or not. Okay, here's the new website. And I'm just going to go from the top down. Okay? Going across the top, you have your logo, which we've modified slightly to bring it up to the Web 2.0 age. It follows standard trends, so for example, lots of light colors and gradients. It still maintains the essence of what the GWP logo is. It's just our spin on a more modern logo. We also have a dedicated site search over here. The previous website, you had a site search, but it was for the entire city website, whereas this site search is dedicated strictly to the GWP website. Going down to the green area here, we have your new and improved navigation menu. We have Save Money, Residents, Businesses, Online Services, the Environment, Rates, Projects, and Reports. We've removed some things from your primary navigation of the old website. For instance, we've removed tree trimming, and we've removed broken streetlights. And the reason we removed them isn't because we don't like those things. We removed them because they weren't getting a whole lot of hits, and people weren't searching for it. We did a quick survey before we redesigned the website, and we asked the residents, we asked the public, what do you like about our website, what don't you like about our website, and what can we do to improve it? And one of the comments that came up was our reports are very difficult to find. So that's one of the reasons that we have projects and reports right there on the navigation menu. We've moved items like online report a broken streetlight and tree trimming to the online services portion of the website. They're there with your eCare login. The Save Money portion has all of the money-saving programs that GWP offers, be they residential, business, so on and so forth, low income, senior. And the other categories are self-explanatory. We've done some tweaking in terms of the titling of the categories. For example, the environment used to be environmental stewardship, and that was just way too long to fit onto the navigation menu, so that's why it is now called the environment. Also, it's a little more modern, in my opinion. Going down to the middle of the page, we have a standard 2-column layout on all of the pages. On the left-hand side, you have the majority of the content, and by the way, you now have significantly more real estate to work with than your previous website. The site has gotten wider now. Okay. Going down the middle, we have a promo here for any of your marketing campaigns. We have things like the Green Building Initiative, Green Partners, anything that you want to highlight or draw attention to, we can put a quick flash animation in there, and those are all clickable. And there's no limit as to how many of those you can have. Going down the main column, we have the headlines. This is all database driven, so any user can input this data. No longer do you have to have any knowledge of websites or how to maintain a website in order to put this information in. You can copy and paste it in right from Word. And right now, we only have 2 headlines. Clicking on each item would show you the full extent of the headline. We also have a news archive, so you can review previous headlines broken down by year. On the right-hand side, the very first thing that you see is account access to eCare. It's a very important aspect of what the website is all about. So we made it right up on the right-hand side, where most websites now are putting their login information. So we're staying standard to what is expected out on the internet.
So excuse me,
Yes.
your account is the same thing as e-bill pay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, most people don't know what an e-bill is, but they know what your account means. The next box is our most requested, and this changes. It's changed once since we went on live. We went live about 6 weeks ago. We base these off of our usage trends and patterns. So we see what pages people are going to most frequently, and we figure, well, let's have them right up front on the home page because we figure that's where the majority of the traffic is being directed. So let's make sure it's right there, front and center. And the residential service is actually the most popular portion of the website right now. And finally, we have the GWP web survey. Normally you have like a quick poll up there. The first poll that we had was, do you like our new website more than you liked our old website? We had a poll up there about which is more important, the environment or saving money or both. Just quick informal items, quick hitting, kind of like CNN does theirs. And it's not scientific. It's just something to provide some kind of interactive functionality for the public. Right now, though, we have your GWP web survey. This is the survey that I believe Ned is using for some strategic planning, and we've gotten some good results on this already. A lot more than previous survey efforts, because other survey efforts on the old website tended to be buried, and people had to look for them, whereas this particular survey is right up front, and it's on every page on the GWP website. Finally, going across the bottom, we have some standard links on this block menu. We've got Home, About, Contact Us, Press Room, Careers, Account Login, and we do have a link to the City of Glendale homepage over here on the bottom. Is there any area you'd like me to jump into?
I was curious about the web survey. Are there results once you click on that? Or is it just people can't see the results?
No. On the polls, so when we had, do you like our new website versus our old website? Absolutely. Those results are almost instantaneous. We have about a 15-minute delay while our databases sync. But this is for internal staff processing only. So staff would ask us to generate the report, and we would do that.
Is there a way we can see the results? Since we take a survey, shouldn't the public be allowed to see what other people think about it too? Is that not an option?
Well, everything's an option, sir. It's not my call. If Ned would like to do that, or
when we're doing a survey such as this, which is directly linked, by the way, to our strategic planning process, it's part of the process. We specifically don't want people to see the results because we don't want to give them any bias. Okay, we want it completely blind. They will have. We will publish results, but after it's finished.
Well, most of the online survey I've seen that once you click on it, you take in the survey, then the results pop up. So you won't be biased on taking it. Only after you submit it, when the results pop up, so that you can see how yours compared to the other people who took it.
May I also add, it is not a simple survey in that which do you prefer, A, B, or C. It is free-form. So people are giving us their opinions in sentences, and we have to analyze that. So it doesn't lend itself to giving a quick response.
Oh, that's a good point.
That's a very good point, and I'll bring it up so you can kind of get an idea of the kind of questions that we're asking.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'll finish.
Well, here's a survey in all its glory. There is a lot of free text fields, and I have to say we do get some spam, which staff have to go in and filter out, and the spam isn't the most appropriate kind of content that you would maybe want residents viewing. But yeah, this isn't a simple bean counting tally. It requires a little bit more analysis to really get the meat of the survey. Like me to navigate to any other section of the page.
Well, the only comment I had is since the web is wider now, you have to really scroll to the side to see what's on the right-hand corner. Like, I didn't notice there was a City of Glendale on the bottom right. So I didn't know that we can click on that. Is there a way we can highlight or make it so that the page show up as one page rather than have to scroll through the sides?
Yeah, and we're actually working on that right now. It's off by, I forget exactly how many pixels it's off by, but it's very minute. We missed it by a few pixels. It's something that we're working on already, actually, because we don't like horizontal scroll.
Right,
it's not a good thing.
It's not a good navigation.
Absolutely. And actually, up top, you see it with projects and reports.
On the survey, how do we assure that we're not getting multiple responses from the same person?
We track the IP address
Okay.
of anyone who submits. Of course, there are workarounds to that.
They can go to different computers.
They can go to different computers. They can go to a public library. They can use proxies.
Yeah.
Will anyone do it for this survey? Probably not.
Right.
I mean, I'm just being honest with you.
No, I was just kind of curious about what the approach was. Thank you.
That's a lot of effort for a survey like this.
Are we getting good responses to the survey?
Good is relative. Yes, I would say we're getting a lot more responses in a less amount of time than we were on previous survey efforts on the old GWB website. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I can certainly provide that information over to the general manager and have him turn it over to you. I don't have a count. I can pull up a count if you like.
Oh, no, it's okay. I'm just curious to see who's been responding and how effective it is. Because some of these surveys, as you pointed out, it takes a lot of writing to fill out. Yep. So a lot of the quick responses are the ones that get more attention or gets more response by having just fill out ABC or pick your dots or whatever. So having the writing sentences, it takes longer. Most people don't want to do that. So
Absolutely.
How can we go about changing it so that we fill out like an ABC fill in the box type?
Absolutely. And if a more in-depth survey is absolutely needed, there are workarounds. I mean, you can have an incentive program and say, fill out our survey and enter a drawing to win a new iPod or a new iPhone or something. So there are ways to kind of entice participation, but you're absolutely correct. The longer the survey, the higher the propensity for people to ignore it. And that's not unique to Glendale or this website. It's true anywhere.
Can we also submit, as the public, submit their own type of survey? Like if they have a problem with their water usage and they want to see how other people have the same situation or problem, can they fill something out to have a survey done so they can see?
What they can do is click on the Contact Us button, and they can submit anything they like. This is a free form, so you can type in your comments, questions, or suggestions, and that may very well be a suggestion. We actually received some feedback via this form about our water conservation page. One resident submitted something, and I'm paraphrasing, this was several weeks ago, something about leaving a bucket underneath their air conditioner so that when the water drips, it collects, and then they go and they water their lawn, which is really smart. I never thought of that. I'm all about the environment. But that would be something that could be added to the website, assuming staff approves. So yeah, we've gotten suggestions, and really, this is an iterative process. So it only gets better with involvement of the public, of the staff. So whatever the public would like to say, we're all ears, and we'll do our best to implement, within reason, all feedback.
Any other questions? Oh, thanks for the presentation. Very helpful.
You're welcome. Would you like to see the PowerPoint, or?
Oh yes, I would if you don't mind. We have
please go ahead.
some time.
Sure. All right. Here's slide 1 of 7. The reason for the change, we had a tremendous amount of information on the old GWP website. Anywhere between 30 and 50 links, and they all look the same. They all looked identical. And this information overload, the fact that it wasn't categorized, it was all just kind of thrown at the user, led to some really worrisome usage. We've been analyzing the trends and the usage of the website using a free utility from Google called Google Analytics. So we've been kind of seeing what people are up to, and the results aren't good. Weren't good. They've gotten significantly better, and I'll get to that on the final slide. We'll get into exactly what the problem was and what our outcomes have been thus far. And the third bullet point that I have up there is no flow. And I want to take the next 2 slides and explain what flow is, because it's very important and it's often overlooked. When you're building a website or redesigning a website, you often talk about look and feel. Look is very easy. Okay, it's aesthetics, it's tangible. You can look at 2 colors and say there's harmony and there's balance here. Feel is completely different. Feel is how a website flows, how it makes you feel. And this has been the most helpful exercise in helping people understand how FEEL works. I show them the slide on the screen. That's not a typo. It's not an acronym. It's the word milk. I ask them to spell the word, and then I ask them to say it out loud 5 times. I'm not going to do it here. And then I ask them, what do cows drink? And 95% of the people say milk. And we know that cows drink water. Well, that's just the way our brains are wired. If we can flow rather than think, we're happy campers. Okay? And this is especially true out on the internet. You don't want to think about what comes next logically. You just want to participate in your program, or you just want to apply for a discount. You don't want to think about how do I go about doing this. You want it to be almost at a subconscious level. That's what flow is. Okay? I've got kind of a compelling argument up here about flow. We're doing the same function across both sides of the screen. On the left-hand side, you have the old. On the right-hand side, you have the new. The old, and on both scenarios, you're looking at the GWP homepage, and then you're trying to find information on shade trees and the free in-home survey, the water and energy in-home survey. If you notice on the left-hand side, you've got colors all over the place. Well, you can't really notice it, but trust me, the colors do change quite a bit. In some areas, the background color is beige. In other areas, it's blue. You have pictures all over the place. You have this kind of this red banner across, or this blue banner across the top, then a green banner, and you're kind of thinking, what's happening here? What's significant? Why did the colors change? Why do some pages have a picture and others don't? On the right-hand side, it's all standard. It's uniform. And it takes a significantly less amount of clicks to get to the same information. It would take you 5 clicks to go from the home page to Tree Power to the free in-home survey on the old site. It now takes you 3 clicks. So we're feeling like that's a pretty compelling argument as to why the old site lacked flow. This new site has flow. Okay, enough about flow. The enhancements that we made, as I mentioned, you now have a dedicated menu structure. You're not competing with the city's website anymore. It's all yours, and you have a 2-level navigation system. One going across the top, that was the green section that we looked at, and one going across the right-hand side of the page. You have revamped categories. So, for example, reports. Your annual reports are no longer under About GWP. It seemed like an odd place to put the reports. What we have now under About GWP is information about the Commission. Where we have the reports is under Projects and Reports. So the categories now are more user-centric. And we've really made a conscious effort to avoid thinking like government people, because people don't understand how they shouldn't be expected to understand how this organization works. We should present the data to them in a way that's meaningful to them. That's why we've used very common English. We've broken it down into very easy to understand terms. I can't be an IT guy without going into some inane acronyms here. SEO, search engine optimization. Our goal here is when people put in water conservation in Glendale, we should always be number 1. It should not be Glendale, Arizona. It should not be Glendale, whatever. It should always be us, Glendale Water and Power. So we've made great strides in making sure that our website is optimized for all of the major search engines. We've extensively used CSS, or cascading style sheets, and what this means is it allows us to make aesthetic changes, so concentrating on the look of the site very rapidly. And an example that I can give you right now is when Earth Day rolls around, you may very well decide that you want all of the text on the GWP homepage to be green. We can do that by modifying one file, and it will take us maybe a minute, if that, and all of the font across all of the pages will be green. Not that I'm saying we should do that. We have some tie-in with existing city systems. We have well-formed XHTML, and I do want to focus on that one for a second. What this means is our website now looks and functions just as well on this BlackBerry as it does on this computer, because the code is well-formed. The other implication is anyone with an adaptive screen reader, so a person with some kind of an impairment issue, can now navigate our website much, much easier and much more efficiently than previously. A lot of people don't know that ADA exists outside of buildings and parking structures. It also exists online as well. New features. As I mentioned earlier, we have some interactive functionality with the surveys and polls. We've got a cool little water usage calculator that'll go in and tell you what your water usage is and then provide you with some helpful hints if it sees areas of deficiency or waste. We've also put up some program participation forms. Our most successful one to date has been the Green Partners program. I think we're closing in on 100 submissions for the program online. With that said, there's still a lot of programs whose forms are still online and not submittable. For example, if you want to submit an application for the Cool Care program or the Senior Care program, you still have to download a PDF file, fill it out, and mail it in. And we're trying to work with staff on figuring out a more efficient way to handle those procedures. All right, final slide. Our observations thus far. Our bounce rate reduced by 20%. And let me explain what a bounce rate is. Think of a bounce rate as a one and done. So person comes to your website, doesn't do anything, leaves. Okay? There's no concrete figure for what's a good bounce rate, what's a bad bounce rate. It's generally acceptable on the internet that if you're an e-commerce website, so you're an Amazon, or you're a Craigslist, or you're an eBay, that your bounce rate should be no higher than 30%. If you're not selling a product, it's okay. You can be anywhere in the 30 to 50% range. Regardless of what the experts agree on or don't agree on the internet, ours was alarmingly high. Our bounce rate was over 70%. That means 7 out of every 10 people that came to our website just left. They were like, I'm not staying, I'm leaving, which is a big problem. We've managed to get that down. It's actually over 20% now. We're in the high 40s, which is a good place to be. We think we can get it down even more. Like I said, this is an iterative process, so we're going to keep pushing. Unfortunately, because there are no hard and fast rules, we don't really have a defining target. We just want to continuously lower the bounce rate. The average time spent on the site is up 50%. Kind of goes hand in hand with the bounce rate. People would come in, get confused, and then leave very quickly. We're finding now that people are sticking around, either because we have more engaging content or because it's easier to find. And that's up by about 50%. Also, the pages per visit is up 35%. So when people come in, they will click on links. They will click on more links. I hesitate to say that our site has gone viral because it hasn't, but it's now more usable. The content is now more meaningful, and the categorizations are helping people find information that they probably didn't know existed otherwise. There's one other figure that I didn't put up there, and it has to do with exit rate. And every website and every web page has an exit rate. At some point, everyone has to leave, right? What we were seeing is an extraordinarily high exit rate percentage on the home page, which was just crushing. We don't want that. We've seen that number drop. We still have high exit rates on things like the Green Partners page, which is okay because they go in, they submit their request, they hit submit, they're done, they exit. Or they go to the Contact Us page, they submit their request, they hit submit, and they exit. That's okay. So we don't mind seeing an 80% exit rate on those pages. We're seeing about a 35%, 40% exit rate on the homepage, which is still kind of high, but I'm hoping it's because those people are exiting to go to eCare, which is a different server, and that would be counted as an exit. So we're still working on that number. That's it.
Comments or questions? I wanted to say I found your presentation very educational. A lot of the stuff I didn't know anything about, the bounce rate and so forth. How do you determine a bounce rate?
We use Google Analytics. I can't bring it up. All right, we use Google Analytics, which is free, and it's from Google. All of the major search engines now provide you with a ton of free utilities for webmasters to monitor their websites and look for ways to optimize. Google Analytics happens to be one of the industry standards, if not the industry standard, and that's what we've been going with. Free service, and it's great.
Well, one of the things that impressed me was you were able to come up with measures indicating a reduction in the time that customers or outside parties would be using this, and I think it's a big improvement. I'd like to thank you and commend you and your staff for doing this work.
Thank you, Mr. President.
And I, too, would like to thank you. I'm very, very proud of our new website, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's it, I think.
Okay, item number 4, oral communications.
I have none, and I don't see anybody submitting any, so on to the next item.
Item number 5, old business.
Did anyone have anything? I did want to mention, I think in a previous meeting we brought up the issue of artificial grass and whether there was any useful input we could have on that. I think you were going to produce a position paper on it.
Yeah, I'm working with our planning department on that.
Okay. Should we expect it next month?
Possibly. I
Okay.
can't. I don't know where planning is. They continue to move on it. So,
Okay,
yes.
but it'll be on the future agenda?
Definitely,
Okay,
yes.
very good. That's all the old business I had.
Item 6, new business.
Any new business? We did have an incident with impersonation of GWP employees, and since some people may be watching on TV, perhaps it would be useful to talk about what customers or outside parties could do to control this sort of thing.
Yes, we've had an incident. L.A. has had a few incidents also.
Yes. Mhm.
And so we urge all of our customers and residents of Glendale, if anyone identifies themselves as a GWP employee, require that they show proper identification before engaging in any way with them.
Okay, and proper identification would be something like this, I suppose, says City of Glendale on the top?
It would be exactly like that, yes.
Okay, has a photo, the city logo, and the name and the staff position of the worker. Well, thank you. Thank you, Director. Any other new business? On to the next item.
Item 7, agenda forecast.
Hugh? Pat?
No.
Let's see. I had a request on an update on the renewable portfolio, and if we could maybe have that in the next month or so, including a discussion of where we are right now with respect to overall goals, what the goals are, what projects we have in the next 5 years to meet the goals, and what programs are available for customer participation.
We've included that on the next month's agenda. So.
Pardon me, I guess I missed that. Excellent. Well, so you can't be aware of everything, so thank you very much. On to the next item.
Item 8, adjournment.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The meeting is hereby adjourned. Our next meeting will be on Monday, November 3rd, 2008, in Council Chambers. Thank you all for joining us.